everyone. Hello, hello. It's good to be with you today. We are so happy to welcome you here in Beaune. It's a new experience for us to organize this kind of virtual tasting. It's not really 100% virtual because I think most of you should have this very fancy samples bottle we sent to you. So be welcome in our headquarters. We are in Beaune, in our historical family room. Just behind me, you have Albéric Bichot, the number 3 generation. You will see maybe other portraits during the show. No, it's not a show. It's really something we want to be very friendly between you and us. So we are not in a professional TV studio, but we do hope the technique is good. You can listen to us well. You can see us, but most important is to drink well. Most of you are based in the US, and we are very proud to have you with us today. You are from the West Coast, from the East Coast, from the North, from the South, from the center. And it's great that the COVID teached us how to be with you. Of course, we would have preferred to be physically with you, but it's not possible today. However, we really hope you will enjoy this tasting. Before everything, I should say that most of you you can be sales rep, you can be distributor, retailer, sommelier, journalist, but most important is that you are a wine lover and wine Burgundy lovers. So be welcome. Before to start the tasting, I would like to introduce you, unless you know them already, if you attended some other tastings in the past with us, last year and 2 years before. But just in case, I would to introduce you at first Mathieu Mangenot. He's a good man. He's an enologist. He's an agronomist engineer. And today his responsibility at Albéric Bichot is to be the right arm of our chief winemaker. By the way, Mathieu has been the estate manager of our Domaine Depaquit in Chablis during more than 10 years. And he came to reach us 4 years ago in Beaune. On my left side, should I introduce you? C'est Christophe Chauvel. We live together for more than 20 years, almost 25 years. Christophe is also enologist, of course, but his work is more, his job, his task is more dedicated to take care of all the vineyards we have in Burgundy. Online, we also have our Albéric Bichot US team. May I say some names like Jim, our president, Jenna, Robert, Jen, Alex, Troy, Liza, Ryan, and in the back office, Isabel and Patricia. So they are your direct contacts, and they are there, they are here, they are with us to serve you as much as they can. And I know that most of you know some of them already. Behind the scene, you don't see them. We have part of our marketing team with Luca at the technique, with Cléophée, and also probably you will meet him one day, Benoit Bruot, who is our new general commercial manager, just joining us last week. Let's see the organization. We have roughly 1 hour to talk about Albéric Bichot and the wines. Then after, in 50 minutes, if you want, we will be able to discuss all together with your questions. And you know that today our main objective is to talk to you about the 2020 vintage. Why we should explain why this vintage again is so unique, why it is so gorgeous, so good. So my two fellows will explain to you the terroir, the sanitary conditions, the climate condition, the weather conditions of this vintage. the background and any details you would like later on, you will be able, of course, to ask your question. Just before, very few words for those who are not too familiar with Albéric Bichot Winery. I really would like to say very few words. As you know already, probably, we are one of the very last remaining independent and family house in Burgundy. I have the pleasure and the honor to represent the sixth generation. We've been founded by his grandfather in 1831. Of course, it's impossible in a minute to sum up 2 centuries of history and histories. Most important, I think, today is to give you some image, some data about what we are today, what is Albéric Bichot today. At first, of course, we are wine growers with our own family vineyards located all over Burgundy, from the north to the south. We enjoy the pleasure to own 6 different domains. The first domain, if we go from the north to south, is Domaine Depaquit, based in Chablis. You should see on your screen some images, some videos about our estate there. It's 160 acres total surface, with mainly iconic wines like 6 different Grand Crus. Altogether, these 6 different Grand Crus represent roughly 24 acres, so it means 10% of all the Grand Crus in Chablis. So these Grand Crus are les Vaudésirs, les Preuses, les Clos, les Blancs, les Bougros, and the very famous Mouton. We will not test it today, but some of you, I know, they like or they love this wine. Besides these Grand Crus, we have 36 acres of Premier Cru, divided in 5 different Premier Cru, from the right bank of the river of the Serein, or the left bank, with les Vaillons, les Lys, les Beugnon, les Montmain, and les Vaucopins, which is really the link between the Premier Cru and the Grand Cru. And in addition, 100 acres of regular Chablis. Then if we go a little bit southward, in La Côte de Nuits, the name of our admiral vessel is Domaine du Clos Frantin. There we vinify only the wines of La Côte de Nuits, with mainly the 5 top Grand Crus we have the chance to own, with the Chambertin, Échezeaux Grand Cru, Grand Échezeaux, Claude Vougeot, Richebourg, and some Premier Cru, like Vosne-Romanée Premier Cru, les Rouges, and the other very famous Vosne-Romanée Premier Cru, les Malconsorts, the neighbor of La Tâche. And in addition, 3 villages, Vosne-Romanée, we will test it today, the Gevrey-Chambertin and the Nuits Saint-Georges. Very close to Domaine du Clos Frantin is the Château Gris. You can see it in the clouds. So the Château Gris is a little jewel, 9 acres only, with mainly Pinot Noir, and a very little part, less than 1 hectare, is Chardonnay. It's quite unique, and yes, it's a jewel, like we can see. Then in La Côte de Beaune, based in Pommard, is Domaine du Pavillon. So Domaine du Pavillon, roughly 40 acres, with red wine, white wine, 2 Grand Crus, on the hill of Corton, with the Corton Clos des Maréchaudes, monopoly. They were the sole owner of the Clos des Maréchaudes, and also a little part of Corton Charlemagne. Besides, 6 different Premier Crus. I will not make the list, but Beaune Premier Cru, Clos des Mouches, Pommard Premier Cru, les Rugiens, Volnay Premier Cru, les Santenots, etc. And 3 villages with Pommard, Meursault, and Savigny-les-Beaunes. More in the south, we have the Domaine Adélie, which is one of our latest acquisition. It comes back to almost 20 years ago. Domaine Adélie in Côte-Chalonnaise, based in Mercurey, for the moment making only Mercurey Premier Cru, Mercurey Red Village, and Mercurey White. And the last acquisition, 2014, is Roche-Grès. Roche-Grès is in Moulin-à-Vent, in the Cru du Beaujolais. So we will not have Moulin-à-Vent today, but another one. That's it for our estates. Besides, we are also négociants, but a négociant, new style, new generation. It's not a négociant like my papa used to do or my grandpa. At that time, they were buying the wine, taking care of the wine in the barrel, aging. But for now, more than 20 years, we are more a winemaker négociant. It means that we buy the grapes to our various suppliers, some friends, we have some contracts, and we make the wine. If we buy, for example, some grapes from Beaune or Pommard, we vinify everything in Domaine du Pavillon, where we have the dedicated team. In each domain, we have one team, so we are really in a spirit of estate spirit driven, of course. Albéric Bichot is a signature, for sure. It's, as you understood, an association of estates. And why, in terms of style, it's a very frequent question. What is your style? I would make a very simple answer. Our main goal is really to try to reveal the identity of each terroir, each plot, each climate. Climate is not related to the climate conditions or to the weather. Climat, is a new or modernized term which has been introduced by the UNESCO in 2015. The 1,247 climates of Burgundy have been recognized at the worldwide patrimonium of Burgundy. Climate is really what we have under our feet. So it's climate is, of course, the soil and the subsoil, the type of variety, Pinot Noir or Chardonnay, and also what is the implication, the commitment of the human work in this environment. So this is our style. We want to reveal who is who in each plot. It's a big challenge. Every year we have to write a new page in the winery, in the vineyards. We have no recipe. The only recipe we could have is our experience and the expertise of all our teams in the various estates, in the cellars, for the aging, in the vineyards, and of course during the aging, but until the bottling. This is Albéric Bichot. We are behind the wine. Most important is the fruit itself, the grape. You can be the best enologist in the world, but if you don't have the best grape, you cannot make a fantastic wine. So our first task is to make the best possible grapes in our vineyards, and also the grapes in our vineyards from our partners. This is it. I think most of you, or all of you, you have a tasting booklet. So we'll have, you should have the 12 different wines we will taste today. I see on the screen the list. For those who attended the tasting last year, we have made some changes because we would like you to discover more appellation, more wines, more terroir. So it's something quite different, but in the same style. So 12 different wines, some reds, some wines from Chablis, from the north, south, from everywhere. So if you agree, I hope you are well seated. You have your bottles, you have your friends, you have your family, you have your colleagues with you. All of us, we wish you a good time. We don't want to be teachers or professors, but as you are not really in front of us, we'll do our best to be just like we are, simple guys, but with the passion of the wine in our blood, for sure. I had the privilege to start the tasting on.
Vintage.
The vintage is not important. Yes, of course. Sorry. Thank you, Christophe. Most important before tasting is, of course, to talk about the vintage. So Mathieu is going to talk about the 2020 vintage, and after, for 2-3 minutes, Christophe will talk to you about our organic revolution we started something like 20 years ago. So, Mathieu,
yes.
Why this vintage is so great?
Yeah, vintage is really great. The thing is, of course, this vintage 2020 was born under the COVID situation. So I think with Christophe and all the teams, we're going to remember during a long time of this vintage, because we had to, of course, to organize everything, to make everybody safe and be sure that the production occurs with quality and safety for everybody. I think you remember a few years ago, 2 years ago, we said 2018 was the hottest vintage ever. So I'm sorry to say it again. It was the case until 2020 came. So this vintage is really remarkable for this. And 2020 is the last of 3 vintages, 2018, 2019, and 2020, of course, of very ripe vintages with a very high level of maturity. So that's really the hottest ever. If you compare the figures, since we have the meteorological and weather records, 2020 is the first in terms of temperature, in terms of sunshine, and also in terms of lack of water. So that's something that's very remarkable for this vintage. It's between -60, -40% level of rainfall from Côte de Beaune or Chablis. And this is something very, very specific to the vintage. So once again, we say it's very, very, very hot, very warm. It's been a bit scary for us, especially a few days before harvest, because of course, we had in mind 18 and 19, but the previous vintage that was especially warm like this was 2003. And we know sometimes the 3, they might appear a bit unbalanced with heavy alcohol or fruit paste character. So we had really to work with this in mind to avoid having something too overripe or with accents of or cooked fruit. Of course, if you look at the maturity levels, it's very, very impressive, and you'll see it on the glasses, especially for the reds. The colors are very deep. The level of polyphenolic compounds are very, very high, and much higher than 2015. That was the last vintage to have a very, very high level. So I think we set new records for this vintage. But the thing is, we had to keep the freshness, and that was really the target of this vintage on the different wineries. So from Chablis, in Côte de Beaune and Côte de Nuits, and the motto was keep the freshness. So we've been helped a little bit by the lack of water, because the vines tended to slow a little bit because of the lack of water. So this has really helped the maturity to go a bit slower. It's been a bit hectic in some condition, with a kind of stop and go, taking a bit of time. And this gave time to the grapes to benefit from concentration. So you know, concentration is the dehydration, so the water leaving the berries, and concentrating everything. So of course the polyphenolic compounds, as well as the aromas, but also the acidity, including also the sugar. So you'll see the acidity and the balance of those wines are absolutely fantastic, and we don't have any effect of heat or overheating or even sunburn because of this period of slow maturation and concentration. Of course, the purity of the fruit was there. We had absolutely no problems during the period, no problems of rot. So the sorting was just there to take care of the grapes, remove the little berries that could have been burned by the sun, and that's it. So it's really a very nice vintage to take care of in terms of winemaking. And we had also to adapt ourselves in the winery itself, again to take the best part of the fruit and to reveal the best part of the fruit on the different wineries. Just to mention, Of course, cold soaking has been used quite widely to express the fruit and really take out the fruit. So of course the weather condition was very hot, and we had to give back to the fruit a kind of coolness. So that was done by cold soaking. Of course, the extraction has been reduced in order to not to over extract, again, to have to arch tannins. So we moved from the traditional pigeage, that we do in especially on the red, to pump overs, to have a very gentle and very easy extraction, again avoiding to take out some green or arch tannin that would not go on the right direction. And also, especially on the red, again, of course, we used a bit more whole bunch maceration. The whole bunch might help and helps reducing the sensation of over ripeness. So everything combined help us to really create some very fresh wines you'll see with very nice fruit. You'll be surprised by the colors, but also by the acidities, especially with the white wine. So again, it's to me a remarkable vintage for all these different aspects, and we hope you will enjoy them.
It has been quite challenging.
It has been, but so good.
And Christophe, about our organic revolution,
Yes.
20 years revolution.
Yes. Well, we have no time to talk about the organic production, but I will remember you, Albéric. Nearly 25 years ago, we met together with a big part of the team, and we talked about organic things and organic viticulture and other things. And we said that we have three mainly goals, in fact. First one is to choose a way to continue sustainable viticulture. Second thing was to take care of us, for the people, for environment, etc. People, the consumer or the people who work in the vineyard. And the third one was how to respect and express the diversities and the qualities of our terroir in Burgundy as better as possible. So that's why we talk about organic production and decide to produce in that way. But we have to practice it and to prepare it step by step. That's why we don't talk about a long time. And then we need to prepare step by step, because some people think that organic production is simple. No, it's difficult, especially in our area. Perhaps more than in some other area, because the weather, the kind of variety we have, etc. And we have more risk, it costs more, and difficulties are more important. So that's why we have to prepare it. But today, I think we are in the good way. I think the goals we expect to have, we have them. It's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. But I think we made the good choice. And today, you will taste some of them.
Yes, and, it's not only words. What we do in our vineyards has been certified by the French organization Ecocer since 2014. All our wines from Domaine du Clos Frantin, Domaine du Châteaugrès, Domaine Adélie are certified. Thank you, guys. I'm just checking the timing. Yes, it's great. We can start the tasting with the Bourgogne Aligoté. Bourgogne Aligoté, as you know probably already, is really quite unique in Burgundy. In other parts of the world or France, to produce Aligoté, this very specific varietal, is quite rare. So for Burgundy, it's a kind of tradition. In the past, Aligoté didn't enjoy a very good reputation, But today, let's say for now, 20, 30 years, with the new generations in the vineyards, with the new climate condition, we can get a very nice ripeness. As you can taste, this Aligoté has at first a great nose. Of course, it's not Chardonnay, but sometimes it is relatively close, and more close after 2 or 3 years. I don't want to say it's the same. Of course, Bourgogne Aligoté is really Bourgogne Goté. It's a very great wine for aperitif, for why not a barbecue on the beach, and do not put any cassis cream in this Aligoté. It used to be a tradition long time ago in Burgundy, but now Bourgogne Aligoté is really a wine itself. This Aligoté comes from our domain Adélie in Mercurey, so the vineyards, probably you will see on the map, is really located just at the entrance of the village of Mercurey. It's not a big plot, it's only 2 acres. We produce roughly 5,000 bottles a year, but it's a so challenging wine for us that we wanted to show you this wine today. If you take care of your vineyards, of your vinification, in the same way as we do for the great Chardonnay of Burgundy, you can reach this kind of level. And in terms of quality, of pleasure, regarding, of course, the value, we can talk about prices, is really something so great. So great. So in this vintage, as you said, Mathieu, the ripeness is there. You have a great acidity, a great balance, a good vibrancy, but also a great roundness, I find.
Yes.
See, it has been pressed with 100% of a whole bunch. It's quite normal for the whites, but we have to mention it. In terms of vinification, only 30% are vinified in an oak barrel, 70% in a stainless steel. Then after 6 months, we blend the two qualities, and the wine has been bottled in June last year. So you see, it's not a too long aging in cask or in vat. These kind of wines, they have to be bottled quite young.
And we wanted, it's not very conventional to use oak on Aligoté, but we wanted to make something a bit special with this Aligoté coming from Domaine Adélie. So that's why we use a little bit of oak. And it goes very well with this vintage because it has the energy, it has a roundness, but also the acidity. And of course, oak treatment is not in the forefront, but really helps to give Aligoté with quite a little bit of structure and very, very delicious to me. Aromatically speaking, it's very open and really, really nice to, of course, to go on itself or, like you say, to pair with food or fishes.
Yes. I think that in this area you have a lot of silice in the soil, and I think it can help to give some delicatesse and elegance. We are not often, we can't expect most of the time with Aligoté like that.
Yes. Let's move to Chablis.
Chablis,
but
of course.
You are the man from
It's
Chablis.
time to, This reminds me of the good old ages.
So we start with the Premier Cru, les Vaucopins.
Yes, so from Domaine Depaquit, we gave a few words about the estate a few minutes ago. And this is a Premier Cru, so Premier Cru Vaucopins from the right bank. You remember in Chablis, we have very, very specific condition of weather, but also the soils are totally different from what you can find in Côte de Beaune or Côte de Nuits, with quite a lot of fossils. We call them chimeridian stones inside the soils. So these stones combine with the cooler aspect of the climate there, with usually September, a bit fresher, with also the nights a bit cooler. So the Chardonnay there will give more minerality, more tension to the wine, and give really a specific expression to the wine. So it's really, again, we said we wanted to promote the climat. It's really a very good example of what we can do. And if you compare a Chablis, and especially a Premier Cru, with a Côte de Beaune or even the Mâconnais, it's still a Chardonnay, but with a totally different expression. So this Premier Cru comes from the right bank of the river, and this is the bank where the Grand Cru are. So should have this Vaucopins been closer to the Grand Cru, for sure it would have been a Grand Cru. We know it after years of working this very, very steep slopes. If you go there, you'll see how complicated this is. Slopes between 30 and 35%. We have to use some caterpillar to work the soil there. And it's really a very interesting Premier Cru. We're going to use a little bit of oak for the winemaking, 15% oak. So just a little hint. Again,
for the fermentation.
Just for fermentation, a little bit on the aging, just to support the minerality, open the wine, and give complexity to the minerality. So it's beautiful. It's a really stone fruit. It's citrus also on this vintage. A lot of zesty citrus character, and it's got a beautiful iodine and saline character, especially on the finish.
Mathieu, can you give us just a few words about the new award or new recognition we've got 2 years ago with the HVI, sorry?
Yeah, so it's a recognition of the work we did on our way to the organic farming in Chablis. You know, it's a long way, especially on an estate of Depaquit, which is 150 acres big. And one of the first steps to be officially recognized is HVE. So it's a French recognition of our practices in terms of pre-organic farming. And the program is going on to make Blanc de Paquis run organic, as are the other estate of Bichot.
C'est HVE, c'est high
environmental value.
Environment, yes.
I have to add that the rules to HVE is very important and very tough.
Drastic,
like in organic production.
And for the Vaudésirs?
So Vaudésirs is the next one. I hope you enjoy this Vaucopins. So again, very refreshing. Also quite a lot of concentration for a Premier Cru. This Vaucopin makes the link from the Premier Cru universe and the Grand Cru universe. Next one is Chablis Grand Cru Vaudésirs. So this is one of the 6 Grand Cru we do own and farm inside the Grand Cru area. You remember the Grand Cru in Chablis are only 2% of the entire, less than 2% of the entire surface. And this Vaudésirs really lies in the center of the historical area of the Grand Cru. So we own quite a big plot of 2.60 hectares, a bit more than 5 acres of vineyards there. It's 100% south, again with slopes quite steep. Again, we have to use a caterpillar like in the Vaucopins to take care of this place. And it is located just next to Mouton. We had a word about Mouton. So the two are located next to each other. Very interesting, but that's not the case today. We cannot compare, but very interesting to do so and see how close they are and how different they might appear.
So it's really in the center of the amphitheater, and the density of the Kimmeridgian soil is so high there.
Yeah.
And if you walk into the vineyard, you can see these small oysters, these mineral, c'est des marnes, des marls, organic marls. They're fabulous.
Yeah, they're everywhere. So we have to, of course, to work with the little marls on the soils, and it's a bit more complicated for us.
It explains that kind of aromas you find in Vaucopins or Vaudésirs, you are not able to find with the Chardonnay, which is produced in Meursault, Puligny, etc. or Macon is very special.
So again, we have some saltiness on the nose. You've got some peachy notes as well. It's quite pure white fruit. It's very expressive, and it's got some richness. Of course, we are on a Grand Cru level, so it's got some richness. It's very clean. I like this vintage for this. It's got some purity,
Very
some
pure.
cleanness. It gives you some really some energy, and it's really a very nice Grand Cru, I think.
This is a wine you can age in bottle. Of course, you can drink it young, but
You can.
to your experience, Mathieu,
Yeah.
this wine can wait.
And I think probably 10, 15 years, depending on how you like it, it will develop beautiful mineral character while aging, losing a little bit of the fruity aromas. Really, really great to begin your after work time.
Thank you, Mathieu. Let's go back to something more in the south with the Bourgogne Haute Côte de Nuits white.
Yes, before to talk about the wine, I have to introduce this area.
Thank you.
Because I'm very proud to live in a small village in this area from long time.
Christophe lives there. Yes, it's true.
Okay, so that's why I'm very happy to talk about Haute Côte de Nuits. So it's located just behind Côte de Nuits, but I have to talk about some difference which are very important to explain that kind of wine. First, the altitude, okay, between 300, 400 meters, and you will see the impact of that. Then we have different exposition, like in Côte, but most of the time, the mainly difference are the density in the vineyard. It's nearly half of what we have on the Côte. The canopy management too, because the vines are higher. The climate, a little bit more harsh or more hard.
Yeah.
Yes, I like it. And the impact of the altitude is very, very important, in fact. In general, we consider with 100 meters difference, the difference of the temperature is 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. So the impact is very important for the growth of the vine, for the style of the vines too, the date of the harvest too.
Yes.
So
And it's more windy
it
most of
depends
the time.
where.
Yes, it depends
Not
where.
in my village.
No wind at Christophe.
No, but it's more cold.
Yes.
You find often you have more snow in winter than even if the last year we don't have a lot. So the harvest was for that kind of wine was practiced between 7 September until 12 September. So I have to remember that on the Côte we practice the harvest. Our team, we have 2 teams, but the last team finished the 3rd September. So it's explained that we have different. We have to respect the impact of the altitude.
Yeah, Christophe, sorry to interrupt. We didn't mention, but harvest started the 22nd of August,
Exactly.
and Chablis was 24th of August. So
Yes.
it's an early vintage, and of course you have to say it's totally different for Haute Côte because of altitude.
I think nobody of us have started the harvest so early yes, and finished so earlier too. So that's why it was important, but to say that when we harvest in the Haute Côte, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, we have to harvest after most of the area in the Côte, because the impact of the altitude. But with this altitude, you keep a lot of freshness in general. That's why we appreciate a lot. Some people say, yes, perhaps with the change of the climate, Grand Cru will go in Haute Côte.
Yes.
No.
Maybe.
Yes, people in Haute Côte say that. In fact, the impact of the altitude is not the only things to have a Grand Cru. Many other things. But that's true that in hot vintage, warm vintage like 2020, the impact is very important.
If you compare with Meursault, which is not a so high altitude,
No.
I pour you
Yes, it is 220 meters, so
Yes.
more than 100 meters less than most of the Haute Côte. So that's very important. So
Meursault, iconic wine. In
Yes.
the south of Côte de Beaune,
Yes.
you know, you have the village of Meursault, village of Puligny-Montrachet, village of Chassagne-Montrachet. So here is one of the iconic wine of the Côte de Beaune south. So it's a blend of 5 different plots.
yes, but just we have
Yes.
to talk a little bit about the Haute Côte, because I think it's my feeling, but when I talk about the aromas is a mix of flowers and fruit, freshness, that's true, but very well balanced because the branches are very ripe. And that is I think it's a wine which is very enjoyable, frank. A good example for me of balance in a warm vintage. That's why I appreciate it. And yes, with Meursault, I think when we talk about Meursault, we have to talk about 3 different styles you can find in the village of Meursault. It's important because most of the people, even in France, they think Meursault must be fat, brown wine, powerful wine. You can have that, mainly on the south of Meursault, when you go to Puligny, because the soil is more deep. You have not quite a big quantity of limestone, mainly clay. So that's why you find that you have climate like Pelle, Pellan, Sous-la-Velle, which are like that. But you have another style which you find on the slope. You have Narvaux, Tillet, Tesson. You have the impact of the slope, but you have a lot of limestone. You are near the rock, no? And you find more minerality and more complexity in that kind of wine. Then the Meursault from the Pavillon is perhaps a mix of each.
It's really, yes, in between.
Exactly. Because it's located on the north of Meursault, toward Volnay. And yes, you have more limestone than in the south. We are no slope, but you can have powerful and you can have minerality too. That is 5 different plots, 5 different results from them, but the mix of them is what I appreciate.
And it's got a beautiful touch of creaminess that we are expecting from a Meursault, of course, but a very long tension at the end. And so that's really the combination you described. I like this combination of the two with the roundness. It's not heavy because we don't want to do that. And it's got the freshness, so it's so strange to see how the grapes have reacted to the heat and to keep this freshness. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think before I joined the company, a long time ago, as you said, Albéric, but I practiced Meursault during 7 years with a great winemaker, wine grower. And it's the style of the wine we appreciate, and I appreciate too. More complexity, more minerality, many things to talk about. Not so punchy, but very long.
No,
and the minerality give you the length, in fact.
Sorry, Christophe, I can't wait to speak about this Fleurie. I like so
sorry,
much.
Time is running.
I like so much the Beaujolais wine, so I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So let's go to the Gamay.
Yeah, the Gamay, that's a treat for me.
More fashionable Gamay.
I like Gamay, it's fantastic. I think you will really love it. So of course we are moving down to the Beaujolais area, which is just south of Mâcon. It's 1.5 hours less than that drive from Beaune. And there's, of course, the Gamay is the grape variety you're going to find everywhere. We are now in Fleurie. You remember maybe last year or 2 years ago we had some moulins à vent. Fleurie is one of the 10 crus of Beaujolais, which is located just south of Moulins à Vent. When we are in our estate of Moulins à Vent, we can clearly see Fleurie. It's just next to this village. And just south of Fleurie, you will find Morgon, which is another big name of the cru in the Beaujolais. Fleurie is quite interesting because it's, of course, it's very, very granitic soils. So the one you find in the heart of the Beaujolais, very poor soils that really suits well to the Gamay. The Gamay tends to be a bit more productive. So the very poor soils with a high level of granitic compounds will totally help the Gamay not to produce too much grapes. So this gives us this fruitiness and the concentration we have in those wines.
Why is it named? I know, huh? Why is it named La Madone?
Yeah, La Madone. La Madone is La Madonna, Madonna, the mother of Jesus Christ. And there is a chapel at the top, a little chapel at the top of Fleurie that you can see for quite a long distance. And this chapel is very, very small, that can only go and have only 20, 25 people inside. This chapel was created in 1866 or so. We don't really know, maybe because of the wine grower wanted to protect the crop from powdery mildew and downy mildew, so they created a little chapel. So it's really at the top of the village.
So it's a limited, distinct
yeah,
area.
It's really like a climat.
It's not a brand. I want to tell you.
Yeah, it's really the name of this place with the little chapel. There is a big Madonna at the top of the chapel, so it's very easy to recognize.
If one day, in future, we never know, there are some premiers crus in a Beaujolais area, for sure, in the Fleurie area, La Madone will be the first one.
Yeah.
Like in Moulin-à-Vent, Roche-Grès will be the first.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very steep slopes. It's 50%, difficult to stay there and work. And the wines, of course, are in this vintage, again, with quite a lot of richness, but it's more on the floral character, iris, violet, quite a lot of hints of rose. It's very fresh, mellowed, very easy to drink, very refined, and it pairs really well with food, like a steak, sorry for vegan people, but it's really beautiful.
Yes, some spice inside too. It's one of the best areas to produce Gamay.
No. Very different soil in Mercurey.
Absolutely.
If we move to Domaine Adélie, I had a question why the name of the domain is Adélie. It's very personal because it's the name of my eldest daughter, born in 2003. When we set up the Domaine Adélie, well, just for the
story.
Yes, the story.
Yeah, so Domaine Adélie produce 4 different wines, including this village level 1 called Pierre-Milley. So it's really at the top of the appellation in Mercurey. As you leave the village and head up, you will drive through Premier Cru Champ-Martin that we own, and then go at a kind of little pass. On your right side, you will find the Pierre-Milley plot. It's a bit higher in altitude. You've seen we have spoken a little bit, quite a lot of altitude today. It's very important, especially in warmer vintages, and that's the case for this plot, which is located at 330 meters high. It's of course it's back to the Pinot, and you will see how Pinot has reacted in this vintage with beautiful character of ripe fruit, of course, but never overcooked fruit. Like I said in the description of the vintage, never overcooked. It's got richness, it's got density, but without any heaviness.
You're right to say no overcooked. If we compare with a great vintage, but so different like all three, like you often find overcooked transitions that are great, but unusual for Burgundy. And that last 18, 19, 20, no overcooked transition. No.
So again, it's a bit of violet here, it's a bit of black currant, it's a bit of strawberry, so little hints of strawberry we find very commonly in Mercurey. So the terroir are here, and that's really the very good answer from us to this vintage is we managed to keep the different terroir, and that's totally Mercurey here.
Yes, the tannins are so soft, so velvet. It's really
Yes.
yummy.
Yes.
Yum yum.
Yes,
Yummy.
yes. I think
For
it's
sure.
one of the things you find a lot with that vintage with the tenants.
Yeah.
Often, yes.
And Christophe, if we go to the
Yes.
Beaune Clos de l'Hermitage.
Yes. So we come back in Côte de Beaune. Beaune Clos de l'Hermitage is located up Clos des Mouches. And it's the soil is not deep. We are on the rock, sorry. And you have so many stones that we used to have a pile of stone we call Mercurey. It's typically Burgundy. And because when you plow, the stones come up and you have to put it in pile and you can use it for a wall, etc. And I think it's a very good example, this area, to talk about Pinot Noir, limestone, soil which are not very deep, on the rock, plus the fact that it was more than 300 meters. And it's the mix of each which can give you that kind of wine, so we practice, for the vinification, we practice nearly 35% full branch for that wine. It could be different for the other. We have to adapt for each wine and the maturation of the stem, the ripeness of the stem. This is, for me, I know the wine, but for me, the third things I have to talk about is the fruity aroma of Pinot Noir. Never forget, some people talk you about many kind of aroma, they are right, about fruit, red fruit, sherry, etc. But never forget the aroma of the Pinot Noir. Because when you test a berry, before the harvest, you feel that kind of aroma. So it's a mix for me from the fruit, but always spicy notes, very delicate.
Yes.
Not a lot. And
it's really elegant, but with the deepness. See.
yes, what is important for me is the way it is support with the tannins, the structure of the tannins. It's fine, elegant, nicely subtle for me. And it's typically, it's not a wine you really expect full-bodied wine.
No.
Yeah,
When you see where it's coming from, it's not possible.
Yeah. It's very elegant. It's got hints of minerality to me, a kind of crunchy,
Even,
shulky character, even for a red, which is quite surprising, maybe because it's higher on the bedrock, which is next to the roots, and it gives this nice tension on this red.
On the tongue, you feel the sapidity. In French, we say la sapidité. It's for me, it's not a silly name, but it's so strange, sapidity. So when people ask us what is sapidity, we say, you pour a glass, you want another glass. This is a real sapidity. It's quite easy. You want to drink it. It's so easy wine, giving you so big amounts of pleasure. And if we compare with now we are moving to the Volnay, Volnay Premier Cru, les Santenots. It's not very far in distance, huh?
No.
2 kilometers and a half.
Yes. But when we talk about Santenots, first I have to say you have the name Volnay, but I have to precise it's located on Meursault.
On the Meursault side.
On the Meursault side,
yes.
It's not on the village of Volnay. It's not, and it's just to. I think it's a good example to talk about the white wine in Meursault. Yes, Meursault is well known. We talk about before for the white, but you have some places which are very good and more for the red. The Volnay, at this side of the Santenots, is a very good example of that. You can produce, if you are in this area, you can produce Meursault Premier Cru white if you planted Chardonnay. That is allowed. But most of the time, we consider that the finesse, the elegance, is not so important that we have in South. You have with Meursault Perrière, Meursault Charme, etc. So I think it's a very good example to talk about red wine.
Yes.
In the Meursault area, even if you have the name Volnay.
For us, it's a quite tiny production because it's less. So it's 1/3 of hectare, so it means roughly 1,200 bottles a year.
Yes, maximum. Yes. Here, we talk about whole branch. Here, for example, we practice nearly 30%. We can talk a little bit about whole branch, but perhaps it will be a question. So
We'll see.
I think.
Oh, it's got a very nice nose again on to me plum, a bit of dried fruit. It remains fresh, but it's got something very expressive and full-bodied with elegance of Volnay.
I think you bite in the fruit too. That is something you find a lot during with that vintage.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's go to the Grand Cru of the tasting of la Côte de Nuits.
Yes,
the
it is.
Corton.
Oh yeah, I forget.
Corton Grand Cru, le Clos des Maréchaudes. A very specific clos. It's a monopoly because we are the sole owner of this clos. A clos very specific because divided in two parts, which is quite unusual in Burgundy because in the same clos, in the same area surrounded by the walls, you have two different levels of appellation. 2 hectares, 1.5 is dedicated only to produce Alos Corton Premier Cru, Clos des Maréchaudes, and half an hectare is this Corton Grand Cru. It's very often some candidates at the Master of Wine or WSCT level 3-4, which is the French clos which can have two different levels of appellation. Le Clos des Maréchaudes from Albéric Bichot.
Yeah. And I think it's a very good example. I like to go in the vineyard with people to explain when we talk about climate, because you can see you have map to see different climate, etc. But when you are inside the clos, you can understand why that part is in Alos Premier Cru, that part is in Corton. It's so evident when you understand the vines, the vineyard, and so you don't have to put a sign to precise here begin the first cru or finish the first cru. You have to look because on the slope, not the same exposition exactly. The slope is not exactly the same part. You know that you are more on the rock in the Corton part, which is up than which is above the Alos Premier Cru. The quantity of clay is completely different, in fact. So some details, little details, which can explain the difference between.
Yes.
Here, we are able, we practice nearly 40% full branch because this area is very ripe. Usually, when people own different Corton, they begin most of the time they harvest with Beaune or Clos des Maréchaudes.
Yes.
Then they go to Clos des Rois. Then they finish with Renard, etc. Because the effect of the altitude is important.
Shall we go to the Côte de Nuits, Mathieu?
Absolutely.
I will say full-bodied wine.
Full-bodied, but so elegant.
Yeah.
Most of some recognized wine specialists, they say the Clos des Maréchaudes, like les Bressandes, are probably the most elegant Corton.
Yeah. Yes, it's a mix of powerful and elegance, yes. And I expect a long time for aging, in fact.
Yes.
So we are leaving Alos Corton to drive up north and go to Fixin. So Fixin is just a few kilometers south of Dijon. Not very well known, we must admit. That's part of our quest to find very good wine with good price-quality ratio, and Fixin is one of them. This wine especially...
so you pronounce Fixin or Fixin?
Oh, Fixin.
Fixin.
With double S.
Fixin.
Double S, yes.
Double S, like...
Middle age, it was 2S.
Double S, so we say, of course, we say Fixin. And this one's come Clos de la Perrière, so it's one of the 4 Premier Crus located in Fixin. Fixin is just next to Gevrey-Chambertin, so it's really a place which is next to the big names, and that has really the characteristic of a very nice Côte de Nuit. So in the past, Fixin was much more in the restaurants list and everywhere, and maybe it has disappeared a little bit, but the quality are very nice, and of course it's one of the biggest names from Côte de Nuit. Again, a bit underestimated. This Clos de la Perrière is part of an estate that we don't own. We've got a partnership with the owner of Clos de la Perrière, and it's so a partnership where we're going to buy and take care of the vineyards and buy the grapes from them and vinify ourselves. So it's a very important partnership. We are involved from the basics to take care of the vineyards and of course to vinify the several different plots we have there in order to take the best from each of them. Clos de la Perrière is located at the top of the hill, so it's really, again, a place which is high in altitude, between 330 and 360 meter high of altitude. So again, it's I would say a kind of one of altitude. It's not haute côte, of course, but you'll find the freshness there and the acidity which is in the forefront. Interesting to go there. There is a little monastery. It was a gift made to the Citeaux monks in the 12th century. So this place has been given to the monks. So there is a little monastery, and the monks from Citeaux were coming here, especially the ones that were sick, were coming here to rest and really take advantage.
It's exactly the same timing as the foundation of the Clos de Vougeot by the Citeaux monks. When we talk about Citeaux monks, it means the Citeaux Abbey.
Yeah.
So in the 9 centuries ago.
9 centuries ago. And so it's still there, and it's really a place where you can find and feel the sense of place, that something happening, not only grapes, but also something linked with the monks and the history. So it's of course a combination of good wine, very impressive wine, but also centuries of history. I like the very fresh fruit character we have in this. It's red berries, it's flowers, and it's typically Côte de Nuit. It's got length. It's not not a massive wine. It's very, very elegant, and it shows absolutely beautifully. Again, it's a result as a quest for us to find good quality price ratio. Please taste it, enjoy it. It's really beautiful, and look at the price, because it's really a jewel from Côte de Nuit.
Yes, Fixin is less well known than Gevrey-Chambertin, but you can find very great wine in Fixin.
If we compare with the jewel with the Vosne-Romanée, it's time to go there.
Yes.
Merci.
I will talk about Vaughan. Even if we tasted the Vosne-Romanée just after Premier Cru, here the Vaughan is a village from the Frantin. I think it's we can talk about Vaughan because Vaughan is perhaps one of the villages which is the most well known, with Dircé, le Domaine de la Romanée-Conti, etc., with my consort too.
Yes, La Tâche, les Romanée Saint-Vivant. This is really the village.
Yes.
All of us, we dream about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have some Vosne-Romanée.
Yeah, and we have some Vosne-Romanée. Vosne-Romanée village. What is interesting, it's come from two different plots. But it's to explain that two different plots, which are with an opposite characteristic, can be combined to give you a result like that. We are located one part on the Damoud, which is on the slope, more on limestone, a lot of stones in it. And the other part which is located to Les Mézières, which is towards Clos Vougeot. So the mix of fish is very interesting. Sometimes we don't have to harvest at the same day because, for example, we need a 4-day difference between both, because the maturation, the ripeness is not the same, because the soil is so different. So very important to know that kind of difference to adapt the date of the harvest, the date of the way of vinification, etc., even if we mix them together, because each one give something to the
Yes.
other. So it's always a red fresh fruit. We always use the word fresh in most of the wine, even if we talk about the warm vintage, but we have freshness. But it's not a fruit like it's red fruit. It's not like prunes or
No,
things like that.
yes, red fruit, some nice soft spices,
Exactly.
white pepper,
Yeah.
more than black pepper.
Yeah, it's more delicate. Yes, I think.
Yes,
I think high density, in fact, in the wine, and it helps to bring, for me, it helps to bring a harmony in general between different characteristics you can find inside. That is because we can. What is important for me when I taste? Yes, you can find many things, but at the end, we must expect harmony inside.
Yes, it's very harmonious. I agree with you. Between the nose, what you have in your mouth, on your palate, the retro olfaction, it's really the same wine from the beginning to the end. Even the what we call the milieu de bouche, it means the middle of the mouth during your tasting, it's
Yes, and the
it's
lens.
so pure. It's really the same wine from the beginning to the end.
I think it's again another good example of how we did in 2020, and I hope you've seen in your glasses how fresh they are, how easy they are, how the tannins are here but not harsh or too difficult to assess. And this Vosne-Romanée is I think beautiful in that sense. It's really nice.
So Mathieu, Christophe, thank you. I'm sorry, we have a timing. Sorry, we are late by 10 minutes. Just a few words to conclude, because I know that some of you have to leave, not to stay for the questions, but for you who are leaving, we just want to say thank you for your attention. We do hope you enjoyed this tasting. I hope you have discovered some. So at first, a new vintage, new terroir, new appellation, new wines probably. We want to say thank you for your attention, for being with us, for being, of course, wine lovers, Burgundy wine lovers. Thank you for your support, your loyalty to our region, to our wines, to Albéric Bichot. Why not? What we wish you today is to enjoy the wine, enjoy life, share your bottles, share your passion with your friends, with us. We wish to see you either in the US or to be able to welcome you soon, if you can come to Burgundy, to put your feet in the soil, to share our feeling, to breathe the air, to see the soil, to meet the people, and to share bottles. Just
of course.
The pure good life.
Basic things.
So we raise our glass to you, to the next vintage 2022. And so bye-bye for those who are leaving, and for those who are still with us. Monsieur Lucas, do we have some questions? Apparently, yes.
Yes, we have only 3 questions, so let's go for the question.
Only questions you have selected, because I see so many other questions.
Yeah, I can't read all of them. Yeah.
So many questions, exactly. So the first one will be, can you address the aging potential of the white wine that we tasted today?
Yes, we can address the potential of the white wine. So again, it depends a little bit on the level of the wine you are dealing with. If you're dealing with a Mâcon Village or a Mâcon Lugny or a Meursault. The thing I can say is, if you are a white lover and if you are used to store your wines and keep them for a long time, this vintage is definitely something you can do with this vintage. So of course, a Meursault, Puligny, a Grand Cru Chablis, Chassagne, you can age them. 10, 15 years without any doubt. After, it depends on the number of friends you have and how long you can secure and lock your cellar, but without any doubt, 15 years.
Luca, yes?
JQ asks, did you use less old bunches percentage in 2020 to keep fresher acidity, given the warmer vintage compared to cooler vintages?
When we practice old branches, we used to say we never know exactly the quantity we have to keep because it's you have different way to keep to practice old branches. First one, you keep 100%. If you do that, you need to wait a long time before harvest because never forget the stem you put in the vat must be mature, ripe enough. And if you have some stems which are not mature enough, it gives you vegetal sensation. The second way is to decide at the beginning, yes, we'll keep 30%, 40%, 50%, it depends. And you can regulate your destemmer. But you don't know the kind of stem you put. It's at random. The third way is, the way we practice, is to see on the table and to explain to the people who selecting the grapes, the
Yes,
bunches.
when you say on the table, not to eat,
No,
on the sorting table.
Sorting table, yes,
Yes.
yes. We are on the table sometimes, but not always to eat. So it's easy to see a stem which is mature, and the people put it, and then we take only stems which are mature to put in the vat. That's why we can have 30%, 40%, etc. Most of the time, old branches give you something which is very interesting, mainly when the vine is young. It gives you roundness. It gives you, especially when you have some vintage, you're afraid of some tannins which are too hard. It gives you roundness. But after a few years, the difference between old branches and not is not so evident.
Yes.
So,
And there is one thing we like, especially in old vintages like this, is that the fact that the alcohol might stick to the stem. So if we've got high percentages of natural alcohol, the presence of stem may help to reduce a little bit the presence of
content.
alcohol. So
Yes.
the impression of a very high alcohol warming the wine, this really helps. So that's a combination of the effects. And yes, we have used it a little bit more in 2020.
But you can lose a little bit in terms of density of color, because of course
That's right.
alcohol can stick to the stem, to the bunch, but the anthocyane, I mean the color contents can stick also.
So we were lucky with 2020 without any
yes.
problems
Luca?
on it.
Brian Long asks, with the haute côtes, do you have issues with frost due to the more extreme climates?
This is a good question.
It's
All the questions are good.
Yes.
But in fact, yes, if you know, I talk about the haute côte and the canopy management, which is different. One of the reasons, which is the vines are higher, because you can have more frost in that area. That's why the frost is more on the ground, and if the plants, the vines is higher, you can the damage or the risk is less important. It's one of the reasons you have that canopy management in the haute côte. But never forget the growth of the vine is a little bit later on the côte. For example, if we talk this year, we were afraid about frost, even in the côte, but it was later for the haute côte. So in general, when the vine is not very high, we expect not to have problem with frost. Okay.
But the more globally, it's true that we have in the past year suffered from a spring frost so deeply, mainly in the vintage 2021, even to the 2022 vintage. 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, we are really frightening about what could happen. fortunately, it seems that in Burgundy, in Côte d'Or, Côte de Nuits, Côte de Beaune, we have suffered, but the damage should be very, very limited. Unfortunately, in Chablis, the situation is quite
it's
more tough.
It's still under investigation,
but of course, frost is normal. It's normal to have frost in early April. What is not at all normal in the global warming and the global changing climate condition is that sometimes at the end of March, we can have a 28, 29 degrees Celsius outside. You remember last year we were in shorts in the vineyards. And 2 weeks later, -7, -8. I don't know in Fahrenheit, sorry, but it was so hard.
And so bud break occurs, and that's where the problems occur as well.
So it's really a challenge for us to find new policy to take care of the vineyards, mainly about la taille.
Yes, the pruning could be later,
Pruning,
but we were not able to do that for all the estates.
Yes.
So we used to have a word which is taito taitar, rien ne vaut la taille de Mars. Okay.
I cannot translate, sorry. But,
we used to say that, but in fact we can't prune every vineyard in March because you have a lot of job after. The problem is not the frost, in fact, the problem is the growth of the vine, which is earlier than usual.
sometimes, yes.
Okay, another question.
What is saying the technical team?
Right now, from Wilfred Wong, which of the wines that we tasted today was the most surprising in its quality?
This is
I have always the same answer. I have three children.
Yes,
I
yes,
can't
yes,
say
this
I
is a
prefer one to
question.
the other.
We can maybe say everyone can say the one he preferred.
Yeah, the most surprising, said Wilfried.
Surprising, yeah.
Surprising comparing to what you were attending,
That's a
you
personal-
expecting, sorry.
That's a very personal feeling.
Yeah.
For me, I'm sorry, but it's really the Bourgogne Aligoté. It's really the entry-level wine, but compared to what normally you can expect from a regular Bourgogne on a Bourgogne Aligoté, for me, it's the best surprise, Wilfried. It's for me. For you, Christophe?
I will not say Haute Côte de Nuit.
No, but no. No, but you've made the vinification.
Yes. No, I think difficult to say. Yes, the 2020 was a vintage like 19. Difficult to understand at the beginning, in fact. 18 was a more traditional, more classical for me. So yes, we discovered the vintage, and the aging was very, very important for that kind of vintage. So I will say yes, perhaps surprising. No, at the end I was not surprising because when you know where it's come from, I'm not surprised.
Yes.
No, I'm surprised, and I'm still surprised by the balances of the whites in general because of the heat. So that's a big surprise. And we thought the white would be maybe a bit flat. And when we tasted the first juices in the tanks after the pressing, we've seen they would be beautiful. So maybe for me the best surprise would be the Meursault. The Meursault, I like it. I like the tension. I like the density it has. So that's really a good surprise.
Yes, the most surprising thing is the freshness.
But you see, at the end of the tastings were organized, the bottles are not fully empty, completely empty. So I can tell you, Wilfried, and you other guys, that tonight,
We taste quickly.
unless you choose the bottles before me,
We'll see.
I will take the Fleurie
Fleurie,
and probably the Volnay Premier Cru les Santenots. To drink today, they are
perfect.
exploding. Lucas, do we have no? Apparently there is no more question. So we regret not to see you. I hope you do not regret to have seen us. And friends, we say again goodbye and thank you for those who are still with us at this time. No,
And
we are going to have lunch, to have dinner. Some of you are going to have lunch, but we wish you really all the best.
yeah, hope to see you alive in France or in the States soon. This is a good system to speak with you, but it's better to see you live.
To see you in Hautes Côtes too.
Live on the live, yes. Santé, santé à vous. Bye bye.
Santé.